Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're a coach or a sports scientist, you know that when it comes to prescribing intensity, precision is the name of the game. So today, we're going to push past the old percentage-based models and really dig into a much more dynamic, much more accurate way of doing things.
Here's the game plan. First, we'll tackle the problem with the old way of doing things. Then, we'll bring in velocity-based training as the solution. But we're also going to shine a light on where the early VBT ideas got it wrong. From there, we'll build the case for hyper-individualization, and we'll wrap it all up with a super practical model you can literally start using tomorrow. All right, let's kick things off with the method we all learned, the one that's been the bedrock of periodization for decades, percent-based training. But you know, its greatest strength, its structure, is also its biggest downfall.
I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? An athlete's one-rep max isn't set in stone. It's fluid. It changes day to day based on sleep, nutrition, stress, you name it. So that 80% you wrote down on the spreadsheet, on a great day, it might feel like 75%, but on a bad day, it could be a brutal, grinding 85% effort.
And that's the core issue, right? The traditional way is totally static. It just assumes this perfect linear progression and completely ignores how the athlete feels today. Autoregulation, on the other hand, is alive. It's dynamic. It lets us make adjustments in the moment, responding to what's actually happening, so we can deliver the exact stimulus we intended to.
So, if we need to adjust on the fly, how do we get that clean, objective feedback? Well, that's where the modern answer comes in, velocity-based training, or VBT.
What VBT really gives us at its heart is a real-time objective number that tells us about performance. We can stop guessing about an athlete's readiness and start measuring it on every single rep, just by tracking how fast the bar is moving. This gives us hard data to make smart adjustments. It's the difference between just prescribing a workout and truly coaching. Okay, but here's where things get a little tricky. The first wave of VBT had its own issues because it leaned really heavily on these generalized, one-size-fits-all models, and while it was a step in the right direction, it created a whole new set of problems.
The idea of velocity zones seemed simple enough. You'd have a certain velocity range, say 0.5 to 0.75 meters per second, and that was supposed to hit a specific strength quality no matter what lift you were doing. The problem is the core assumption that the same speed equals the same intensity across exercises is just flat out wrong.
Let's look at this. Say an athlete is moving the bar at half a meter per second on their back squat. Okay, that puts them at about 78% of their one-rep max.
Now keep that exact same speed, 0.50 meters per second, but switch to a deadlift. All of a sudden, the relative intensity skyrockets to around 89% of their max. That's a completely different training stimulus. And it gets even more extreme. For a bench pull, that same speed corresponds to a staggering 97% of 1 RM. That's a near maximal all-out effort. You see the problem? If you prescribe one velocity zone for all these lifts, you're creating wildly different and, frankly, unpredictable training stresses.
The truth is, these general profiles are just fundamentally flawed. The relationship between load and velocity is specific to the exercise, to the variation of that exercise. It's specific to sex, to age, even to the equipment and the device you're using. But here's the most important one. Every single athlete is an outlier. Everyone has their own unique fingerprint.
So, all of this points to one unavoidable conclusion. If training a group based on averages is broken, the only real path to precision is to zoom all the way in and focus on the individual, what we call the N of 1.
This is the key takeaway. Building an individualized load velocity profile for each of your athletes on each of their main lifts is simply the most accurate and reliable way to handle intensity. It automatically accounts for all those variables we just talked about because it's built from the ground up using that athlete's own data.
Of course, I can already hear what you're thinking. This sounds great in a research lab, but who has time for that in the real world with a group of 30 athletes? And you're not wrong to think that. This quote nails the biggest barrier, the perception that it's just too complicated and time-consuming. But what if that perception is wrong? And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and honestly, the most exciting part. We're going to bridge that gap between the lab and the weight room and show you how the latest research has made individual profiling not just possible, but incredibly practical.
You do not need 5, 6, or 7 sets to build a rock-solid profile. The science now fully supports a super efficient 2-point method. All you need is one data point from a light or moderate set and one data point from a heavy set. That's it. From just those 2 points, we can create an accurate, individualized load velocity profile for the day. Okay, so this is basically your new cheat sheet. To make this work with maximum accuracy and efficiency, here are the 4 rules. 1. Use mean velocity. It's just more linear and more reliable. 2. Use a simple linear regression model, not polynomial. It's actually better for predicting. 3. Use that 2-point method we just covered. And 4. Use a general, exercise-specific minimal velocity threshold. This is huge because it means you don't need to do any maximal testing and it's more reliable anyway.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. Making this shift from generalized zones to individualized profiles, it's more than just a new technique. It's a shift in coaching philosophy. It's about moving away from prescribing for some imaginary average athlete and starting to coach the individual standing right in front of you. The tools and the methods are here, and they're more practical than ever. The only real question left is, are you ready to make the switch?